Oh,
All
right, we're live.
We're live, and I guess if we can still say it, Happy New Year to all our people out there in the social media land. This is Craic and the Bat, which is basically part of the Irish American Baseball Society, which is a society for Irish people who love baseball and baseball people who love Ireland, with a view to growing the game, promoting the game both here and in Ireland, and obviously through the Irish American Baseball Hall of Fame, we shine a spotlight on people who have had a role to play in that. And one of those gentlemen is kindly joining us. He's coming back, our good friend Kevin McAlpin, pre and post radio for as the sign over his head says, the world champion Atlanta Braves.
Making sure you guys can see that all right. There you go.
So what we figured, Kevin, was that as we start the new year, that we figured we'd go back before we go forward, and who better to recap the 2021 season, but with somebody who not only, obviously is involved, but basically got to take it to the very last game of the World Series. So congratulations. Must have been a little bit different. I guess it probably wasn't what you were hoping for, but. So take us back. I think the last time we spoke was actually before the season started, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So it's been a while, yeah. Lots changed in the last year, hasn't it?
Take us back to so spring training in 2021. Did you travel? Did you get to come to Florida?
No, this was the first year, Shaun, that I didn't go to spring training. And you want to talk about having major FOMO from like feeling like I should be in Florida and being around the guys to covering it all via Zoom, our new reality of press conferences, at least during 2020 and 2021. So I did not get down there last year. I'm hoping to get down there this year for a little while, maybe call some innings with Ben Ingram. We carry every spring training game. So yeah, it was a little different. I've probably never felt as disconnected from a team covering this ball club since 2012 than I did this year, just given the fact there was a lot of guys I never got to meet. You can't really form relationships over Zoom, doing virtual press conferences. It's all about, spending time with them in the clubhouse and getting to know them and more so them trusting you. So no, I was missing out last year. I always say after the holidays, I start getting the itch that it's time to go back. I'm not really feeling that itch right now, given the fact the lockout really hasn't moved anywhere. So we're all keeping our fingers crossed that in a few weeks we'll be headed down to Florida and hopefully headed down your way here once games get going, I guess, in 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of not going to worry too much about the lockout because we're not going to get into arguing about that. I guess we're going to worry about and talk about what we can talk about. So season starts. We're still doing Zooms. Are you basically, you have a beautiful setup, and I would tell anyone who gets an opportunity to go to Atlanta for a game, and everybody should take an opportunity to go. What they've done there is absolutely phenomenal. But your studio is basically off the main drag, let's say, or on the main drag, should we say? You can stop by and say hello. So you were doing all your games from there? Or just the home games?
So they, Ben, Jim, and Joe, calling the game, started out the season. They were not traveling. Midway through, I want to say it was in July, a little 3-day trip up to St. Louis was the first time those guys went on the road. I did not travel at all this year. I was in the studio like I was in 2020. Hosting the pregame show, the postgame show, and Braves Wrap Up, which is our local call-in show after the network postgame show is done. So I got to say this, and I'm not saying it because they're friends of mine, but I got to give Ben Ingram and Joe Simpson and Jim Powell a lot of credit for calling those games remotely for as many games as they did. Not an easy transition when you're not in the building. You can't get the feel. You can't get the atmosphere. You can't see some of the ancillary things that are happening around the ballpark. So those guys were awesome. I was here in Atlanta. So like you said, our studios are literally in the Battery, which is the complex right there at the ballpark. So I can basically get off the air from the pregame show, walk across the street, get something to eat, and be in my seat in the press box before first pitch. So it's very convenient. It's a great setup. I'll stay there till about the 7th or 8th inning. Then I'll walk back across the street and get ready for post game. So I've gotten used to it. Mom up in Philly is not very happy that I'm not traveling anymore. Some of my friends that are up there that would come to New York or DC or come see me, obviously, when I was in Philly, are a little bummed they didn't get a chance to spend some time with me the last 2 summers. But, again, the guys that called the game remotely, credit to them, because that's not an easy transition. And, again, I've said it a lot on the air here in Atlanta. You'd never know they weren't in the building. That's how great of a job they all did, just calling games off of basically computer and TV monitors.
You could almost make the argument that they were too good at it, because, they did such a, I mean, look, you're right. I mean, what makes it harder is the fact that everybody has, the games on the phone. So you're seeing it, and then you're listening to it, and you're like, oh, how did they not see that?
Right.
And then you realize they're looking at a monitor that has, 8 different pictures on it, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, our good buddy John Sterling took a lot of grief for, not being with it. But, I mean, you're working off a camera, and Aaron Judge is at bat, and, you look down, you look up, and, there's a ball leaving the park, and you're not in the park, so you're not hearing the crowd. And he calls a home run, realizing that it was the home run he hit the previous season, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So the Braves got off to a slow start. And no one knew why. Obviously, the guy that's over my shoulder here, his injury his loss was a big blow to the team. Yeah. Obviously, we in New York, we were watching the Mets, who by default were in first place. I mean, it was bizarre that I think at one stage the Mets went 24 and 28 and still stayed in first place. So it just says how bad, it was. I happened to be at when they played the Yankees, which was kind of around when the turnaround happened, and I'm taking credit for the win the World Series. I think it was my visit to Atlanta was the reason why, Snip and the boys finally got their shit together and got stuff done. But it's so explain what that was like. I mean, you're okay. You're not as close as you used to be, but you're very close to a team that
mm-hmm.
has phenomenal weapons. But yet they're not. I mean, obviously you don't have the access to be able to talk to the coaches and find out what's going on. But it had to have been tough to be watching what you watched the first half of the season.
Yeah, it was, Shaun. There's no doubt about it. This was a team the last couple of spring trainings that's come into the year, and they've said, look, it's World Series or bust for us. Anything less than winning a title won't be satisfactory. 2018, 2019, they were still, I think, kind of just happy to be getting into the playoffs because of what they went through in 14, 15, 16. 17, things started to turn a little bit. You started to see the potential of guys like Acuna and Albies, coming up through the system and making an impact when they got up here. Dansby was still a very young player at the time. The pitching was still very young and inexperienced, but you saw that there was a lot of good things on the horizon. So, coming into the year, there was a lot of hope that, hey, third week of the season, Mike Soroka is going to be back in the mix, and that's going to be a huge lift. And then we all know what happens. He blows out his Achilles just walking into the clubhouse. I mean, just a total freak accident. And he's done for the year. You lose Ronald Acuna Jr. in the middle of July, who I think a lot of us felt like was on pace to be the MVP in the National League. If you want to play the on pace for game, he was on pace for like 50 bombs and 120 ribbies. You lose him. He's done for the year. You're not above 500 until after the trading deadline. Alex goes out and the moves that Alex made, I mean, you got to give him a ton of credit. Bringing Adam Duvall back, that's one that they never should have let get away in the first place. Jorge Soler, who ends up winning the World Series MVP. Eddie Rosario, who had an oblique injury, and you got him for Pablo Sandoval, who never even got on a plane and went to his new team. He was DFA'd before, he was even able to get a flight. You bring in Richard Rodriguez from Pittsburgh. All of these guys had impacts on why the Braves got to where they were. But again, for a team that was, hey, World Series or bust, and you're not above 500 till the second week of August. Jock Peterson as well. How can we forget about Jock and the pearl necklace and that little swagger he brought? All of those guys had an impact, a big impact. So again, I think you have to give the front office a lot of credit for saying, you know what? We're only 4 or 5 games out of this thing in late July. We can make a run. The Mets and the Phillies hadn't put anybody away in the division. They saw that there was a path to getting to where they wanted to be. I don't know if they could have envisioned they would have, gotten the World Series and LCS MVPs along the way, but, give credit to the players as well for sticking to it. I mean, it would have been very easy for those guys to say, you know what, it's early August. We're not even above 500. They went through a stretch where they went 3 weeks in a row alternating wins and losses. Literally every other night was a win. Every other night was a loss. It was just bizarre. So again, I see this sign over my head. I go to the ballpark. I see my son wearing his World Series champs shirt. And there's times where I just say, like, I still can't believe they did it. It's one of the most improbable runs to a World Series title that I can remember in recent history.
Now, do you? This is a hard question to ask with you not being in the clubhouse, but I mean, is there, you lose some pretty big forces. I mean, is there one guy that controls that clubhouse? Is there one guy that kind of said, like, is it Freddie? I mean, is Freddie vocal? Is he a vote? I mean, he leads by his presence on the field, but I mean, when you're going through stuff like they're going through, normally you need somebody to. It's normally a veteran player to kind of say, we got this. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. It's
Yeah.
162 games.
I think Freddie has really grown into that role really well. I think back to 2012 when Chipper announced that he was retiring, and all season, towards the end, it was okay. Who's going to be the new leader in the clubhouse, if you will? And everyone sort of looked at Freddie, and Chipper said, "That's your guy right there. There's your number 3 hitter for the next decade." And Freddie, I remember him saying it. He said something along the lines of, "I'm not serious enough to be a leader." And again, he was still like 24 years old at the time, so he was still a kid. But he has grown into that role in a tremendous way over the years. And I think Freddie's become the kind of guy that if something needs to be said, he'll say it. I don't know that he seeks being the vocal leader, but he'll certainly step up and say something when he has to. You've got Charlie Morton in the pitching staff. I think he's another guy that probably more of a lead by example type player. But they have certainly had a number of guys the last handful of years that if something needed to be said, I'll give you another one. Nick Marcakis, who never said 2 words to anybody. Great guy. One of my favorite guys to cover. One of the hardest working players we've seen here in a long time. He was the kind of guy that he didn't say a whole lot, but if he gave you the little, come on over here, you knew he had something to say and it was going to be pretty impactful. So, yes, Freddie has definitely emerged into that role, which is why I think a lot of folks here in Atlanta just crossing their fingers that they'll find a way to get Freddie back here on a 5 or 6 year deal once this lockout does wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, we can't really talk about that with everything that's going on, but it seems bizarre that, I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Alex could be talking to now he can't be, but the fact that there was so little said beforehand was just like, no, let's talk about, that he may go back to LA and stuff like that, or even to talk about him coming to the Yankees. I mean, it would be disappointing to see him leave, but I mean, it would kind of be, that's a very young team, and he's a big part of it. So, I mean, we have some comments from some people on Facebook land. Unfortunately, we're using some new software, so I can't see your name. But we have somebody who wants me to ask you, Kev, who will be the Braves' biggest rival this season? I mean, it's a little early to talk about that, but I mean,
I'll go Mets. I mean, I just think that what they've done, bringing Max Scherzer into the fold. I mean, the moves the Mets made prior to the lockout, it does feel like they're primed to be, when you think about that combination of DeGrom and Scherzer as a 1-2 punch, that's scary. Now, look, there's a lot of folks here in Atlanta that'll say, well, until they do it, I don't really trust the Mets. Philly has become a pretty good rivalry over the years. The Nationals and Braves had a pretty good thing going for a while. But, Washington's sort of in that rebuild stage. So if I had to pick in the division, I would say it's probably the Mets. It just feels like that's good. That's going to be a team. They're going to be a good ball club. But again, folks here will say, well, just wait until they pull a Mets on everybody and see what happens. But
Yeah.
they're going to be a good club. There's no doubt about it. And I think that'll probably be the Braves' toughest test, if you will, to repeating as division champs for the 5th straight year.
So regular season was a little weird. Now, when they relaxed the rules, did you have any more access? Were you able to? I think I saw you were able to get on the field before you did your shows. So you had
Yeah.
did you have, like with the Braves, one of those teams where you were able to interact with the players, or?
Yeah, they were, and big thanks to the Braves media relations staff for making that happen. Yeah, they let us down there. It was probably July or August was the first time we were able to actually go back down on the field, watch batting practice from a distance, obviously. And then once we got into September and in the postseason, we were able to be on the field as normal. Grab guys, interview guys. We didn't have to wear a mask. They said have one on you in case a player request that you wear one when you spend some time with them. And it's funny you mentioned that, Shaun, because I know Brian Snitker. You've known him a long time. The first time I saw Snit this summer, it was probably, like I said, it was probably August. And it was like, holy cow, where have you been? And I was like, am I allowed to shake your hand? He goes, get over here. And he gave me a hug. And it was just good to sort of feel that sense of normalcy again. And I remember watching batting practice for the first time this year on the field. And, it's something I do 162 times a year, plus 30 times in spring training. You almost just get used to it. It's almost second nature. And it was like, man, this is so cool to be down here again. And there were guys like Freddie Freeman that were like, are you guys ever going to be back in the clubhouse? And I said, do you really want us? And he said, yeah. Like there are guys, believe it or not, that actually miss that interaction with us and would rather, talk to us one-on-one or 1-on-3 and 4 than, just being on Zoom. So yeah, it was fun to be back down there and see those guys. And again, the newer guys that got here in 2020, I don't really have a relationship with, but those guys that have been here from, for years, it was just good to kind of get down there and get a smile and a handshake and a, how you doing once again. I mean, it's probably something we took for granted all those years. And I know I won't take it for granted anymore moving forward.
So we're not somewhat near the end, but so let's get into the playoffs. It's weird that you can say you weren't doused with champagne in this. So, like, how did that? I was trying to remember. Like, did clinch? What did they clinch at home?
They clinched the division. They clinched the division series and the LCS. So
Right.
3 of the 4 clinchers happened at home. The only one they didn't clinch at home was the World Series. They had to do that in Game 6 in Houston. So that was the only one they couldn't do here. And man, I got to tell you, the atmosphere here in the complex around the building, I've never seen so many people in one spot. I mean, it was incredible for Game 5. And then Duvall hits a grand slam in the first inning, and I'm going, oh my God, they're going to win this thing here at home, and it's just going to be chaos. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But yeah, that was kind of weird. The one thing I didn't get, Shaun, this year, I didn't get any corks from any of the champagne bottles, which as over the years I've grabbed, and I still have them around the house somewhere. My wife always asks, what in the world are you ever going to do with these things? And I don't know. I write the date on the back of them and I put them on a shelf. I don't know, but yeah, that was kind of weird not being in the clubhouse when they clinched. But I did get a chance to be on the field right after the final out of the World Series, and I've got some unbelievable video and being right next to the dugout when the guys are all running out. And I actually was there to set up a microphone so Joe Simpson could do live interviews on our post game from the dugout. So I was literally waiting for everyone to empty out of the dugout so I could run in and plug our equipment in and tell the guys up in the booth we were good to go. So the one thing I will say this, I'm kicking myself, and it's going to be a while till I get over this one. Some of the TV folks here in Atlanta I saw on Instagram, they had gathered up a bunch of the confetti from the field and put it in a clear Christmas ornament, and they hung it on their Christmas tree. And I'm like, why didn't I think to grab some confetti? So again, rookie mistake. And if they do win it again, anytime while I'm covering this team, I'll be sure to grab some confetti next time.
I don't think they did any of the champagne celebrations this year. Wasn't there kind of COVID rules about?
They did some stuff. I know after the World Series, they did a big thing where they all went in, Snit did the talk, and then they did a quick thing, and then they all emptied back on the field because the families, their kids, their wives, and, everybody was out there. I thought one of the cool things was being on the field, seeing players go up and see their dads after they clinched. I thought that was there was some really cool moments. Obviously, Freddie and his dad, Fred, but some of the other, like the relief pitchers, like Tyler Matzik, who was, just incredible for the Braves. Seeing him with his family on the pitcher's mound celebrating. That was really, really cool. So that's probably one thing that's been missing over the years. So that's, I think, being able to share it with their families on the field was a pretty cool touch.
Now, how was the parade?
It was awesome. I was not in the parade. I was along the route. I took my son Max. We spent the whole day together. I promised him, if they win the World Series, if you have school the next day, whenever the parade is, you're not going. Well, the schools all around here shut down that day. There was no school in Atlanta that Friday afternoon. So I took my son. We spent the whole day together. We just walked around, took it in, and he was just blown away, seeing the trophy go by on the bus and seeing the players. And, he doesn't realize how good he's got it. He's gotten to meet a lot of these guys over the years. And, he's like, oh, there's Freddie and there's Austin Riley. And he thinks they're his buddies, when he saw them go by. But it was cool, seeing it through his eyes. I thought was really, really special. So parade was amazing. It was a two-parter. They did a half of it downtown Atlanta, and then they did the other half up closer to where the ballpark complex was. And it was people for as far as you could see. And, it was 26 years, folks waited a long time for it. And now we had another one this weekend with Georgia winning the national title. So I don't know if I'm not ready to say Atlanta is becoming title town yet, but man, this has been a pretty good little 3-month run we're on down here.
Yeah, let's not bring up the Falcons or the Hawks just yet. But it's a good start. You're halfway there. But speaking of somebody who lives in Tampa Bay, we've had a fair share of that down here recently. Again, I'm taking full credit that all happened since we moved down here. So we will be taking credit for that.
Has nothing to do with that number 12. It's all you, Shaun. It's all you.
No. Well, listen, in all fairness, you know what? If I have to give the credit to anyone, let's give it to the Irish guy.
There you go.
They weren't any good till they got an Irish guy in as quarterback.
There you go.
Former baseball player too. So we're going to wrap it up here, Kevin. Delighted that you are the first of our interviews for 2022. And also looking forward to you and I are actually going to do some interviewing. So we figured before we get you on this side of the Zoom or whatever we're doing now, that we would just play catch up and congratulations. Because actually, I think if it's that your very cute daughter has come on the scene now. She's quite a star of your social media. She's pushed Max to one side.
Yeah.
So we will we look to do some interviews. Hopefully, we can grab some people. Again, we're going to try and steer clear of talking about anything to do with anything that we don't know anything about, which is the lockout, and purely talk about baseball. So congratulations. Thank you for everybody that listened and watched. Again, apologies, I can't mention you by name, but somebody is watching us from Mexico. So hola, and
nice.
Go Athletics. So I'm assuming you're talking about the Oakland Athletics and with your new managers. And hey, listen, you wear those green uniforms. Anyone that's green is good. So Kevin, thank you very much. John, thank you for your help. And stay tuned. We will have another interview next week. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Kev. Thanks, Shaun.
Thanks, guys.